we wanted to start on a somber note today. The L.A. wildfires have impacted a whole lot of people. Some good friends of mine, real estate agents, Eric Crumbaker, Carrie White Crumbaker, they lost their home. They live right in Pacific Palisades. In total, there's been more than 2,000 structures that have been damaged or destroyed across L.A. County. The Palisades fire burnt over 17,000 acres. There's been, just in the Pacific Palisades alone, there was 1,000 structures destroyed. Wind gusts were up to 100 miles per hour. There was another, 10,000 acres in the Eaton fire. And it's, very, very sad situation there where what we're seeing happen now is that there were just over 130,000 residents that were ordered to evacuate or were displaced by these fires, and it's been pretty challenging for a lot of folks out there. What we've also seen, what's up, Sarah? Welcome to the show. Good to see you. We've also seen that there's been some agents, specifically a friend of the show, Ben Black. He's actually a resident he grew up in Bryn Mawr. He, along with some other folks, they are now imploring the government to do some things out in L.A., specifically some tax incentives and some other stuff. So there's the ULA tax, which went into effect April 2023 and levied a tax of 4% on properties priced over $5 million or a tax of 5.5% on properties of $10 million or higher, for which the home seller is responsible. They're asking that they're allowed the people that lost their homes to sell their property without being subject to the tax. They're worried about rent gouging. I mean, it's been a pretty sad situation here. I mean, have you had anyone affected by these fires? Anyone you know, Sarah? Because it's really hit the real estate community pretty hard because there's like nowhere to go.
Yeah. My sister lives in San Diego. So obviously they're not affected, but she does have some friends that are up there that have, had to be displaced. Actually, one of our clients that I was just talking to today who has a property here that we're going to be listing. He was, out in LA. He was evacuated all of last week. So
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's horrible.
Yeah. So, for it being as far away as it is, like it does, it hits home in various places.
Yeah, and I think the tough part about that is you always get people that are trying to like take advantage of these things too. So I know Ben and a couple other people. It was who was it here? Looks like it was Jason Oppenheimer, Mauricio Umansky, some of the folks out there at the agency. They sent this letter to Gavin Newsom, L.A. Mayor Karen Bass, and there was 45 agents that had signed off on this. And basically, they're asking for help around insurance coverage. There was like 16,000 policies that got dropped out there. Building codes, restrictions that were laid out by the Coastal Commission of L.A. And I mean, it's this is not going to rebound quickly here. I mean, this you're looking at 5, possibly 10 years before the area is really rebuilt, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, there was Joe Rogan posted this, or he didn't post this. He talked about this like in July. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw this clip where he was talking to a firefighter, and the firefighter basically said like, "Yeah, we get lucky if the wind picks up. Like, there's nothing we can do," and that's exactly what happened here. So. It's going to be a long way to go. And, what's tough is, too, like, I don't really see, like, a good place, like, to donate. Like, the Red Cross, I know, has had some issues in the past, so it's tough to figure out how you can help. But if you know someone out there, I mean, I would just reach out to them and see what you can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like it hits on so many different levels because there's, obviously the impact of the, homes burning, people being displaced, people being out of school. And then, I don't know, I also think about all the pets. And I know, like, again, from talking to my sister for like San Diego, they're really encouraging people to foster animals from like the shelters in San Diego so that then they have room to bring in animals from LA. Cause I mean, it's such a massive city. Like there's just like a lot going on there. And then you've got all of the just like wildlife as well. That's, so it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to my buddy Eric. He was actually on the show. He talked about crypto. You remember him? Mm-hmm. And him and his wife, I was mentioning that they lost everything. They live in the Pacific Palisades specifically. And he sent me a message when all this was happening. He was like, hey, we got the dogs. And that was it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and everything's just gone. And it's, I mean, some people are fortunate. They got relatives out there, like your sisters, like, I mean, you think about like these people, but it's still like you don't have a place to go. You've lost it's super, super sad what's going on here. And, I think the government needs to step in. I do applaud Ben, give him a lot of credit here for using his like celebrity fame from the next Netflix show. He'll tell you it's more about his business, but he's obviously got a platform there to raise awareness about these things, because there are people that are like price gouging and stuff too. And this is where the government really needs to step in and make this easier for a lot of folks. There's a lot of agents like donating their commissions. They're just getting people placed. That's the kind of stuff you hope to see happen.
Yeah, for sure. Very
sad. So, if we find something well vetted, we'll push it out here. I don't really know. I don't want to put out like a donation link or anything like that. And we'll keep you updated on how we can support the people out in LA through the real estate community, because the shelters were destroyed. That's what we provide for people. So there's no easy transition here, Sarah, but we got a jobs report that came out last week, and the jobs report numbers, and this is going to be interesting. I think this is a sign of things to come here, is that U.S. payrolls grew by 256,000. The forecast was 155,000. So this is like a 2/3 bump on these jobs reports. Way more than expected. Unemployment rate fell to 4.1%. That was 1/10 of a point below the expectation. And, what happened was you saw like the Dow dropped like 700 points on Friday when this went down. We saw that interest rates, they've come up to like the 7.25% range right now. And this is what a lot of people were a little concerned about when it came to these jobs reports, because as these jobs gets added, it's not what the Fed wants to see. And I just don't see these rates coming down anytime. So we just talked about this like a week ago at our office, and this is the market we're going to be in. So how are you helping people navigate this? Because there was this hope that rates would come down. I mean, all the predictions are 6.34% by the end of the year. I mean, that's a full point basically where we are right now. Not quite. How are folks dealing with this?
I mean, that's also a full year away, basically.
Sure,
so,
good point.
If that's, I think what we've kind of talked about is, even if they can get down to that point by the end of the year, it's going to take a long time to get there. And there probably is going to be, as there always is, it's not going to be just like a straight decline. There's always going to be the little like ups and downs in there. So if you can afford to wait for a full year in hopes that rate is what it is, and then at that time the right house comes up and there isn't like a massive level of competition on it, that's something that some people may want to do. But for most people, I just kind of run cost sheets and say, like, this is the rate.
Yeah.
Like, if this is the rate that we have and this is what we're dealing with, this is what your monthly payment is. And then, that's kind of where we're at. And I think when you are motivated, you're going to figure out kind of a way to make that work. And then, at the same time, things have, gone up and down and teetered a little bit, but we're kind of around where we've been for the last couple months. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're seeing massive increases and drops.
Yeah, well, that's really great advice. And when you look at these kind of rates that are coming up, I mean, there's not, I think the one concern some people have is that even though like pending sales data was up over 5% during the first week in January, pending contract data is still up compared to last year. Now we're only 2 weeks into the year. There is some concern this might hurt demand, and that's going to be a regional thing. I don't see that slowing down demand here at all, because our inventory is too low, and there's still people that just want to move.
Right. In
spite of that, I've got a trivia question for you here.
Ooh.
So, do you know what the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is over the past 50 years?
9%.
9%. So you're high. It's 7.73%. That starts in April of 1971 when Freddie Mac began tracking rates. So we're still below the average over the past 50 years. And, you look at some of these historical 30-year fixed points. So, rates peaked in the 80s at 18%. Obviously, we saw high 2s, 3%.
Yeah.
I mean, people got spoiled by this, but we're also in a global pandemic or inflation rage. So everyone complains about inflation, but then they don't like high rates. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
So it's important for people to get a historical perspective on this. And I just don't see demand slowing down in our market here specifically. Certainly that could happen in other markets, places like Florida and Texas where inventory is elevated. And even if you look at, we saw, heading into the end of the year, the purchase applications were up. I mean, I don't think this has slowed down anything so far since this happened on Friday. I mean, we've only got a few days of data, but I mean, are you feeling that at all, Sarah, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, no, I really don't think it has slowed anything down. I think this is also a time where it is important to talk to multiple lenders and to shop around and to find out what your options are. Does it make sense to do points, or are there different lenders that are offering different programs, or can they, have you qualify for different additional things that can bring down those payments? And getting out there and talking to more than one person and shopping.
And what I also bet happens here is they're going to revise these numbers down, and there's not going to be 256,000 jobs just like they did last year. I mean,
right.
that's a very hot report. And you talk about talking to lenders. I mean, lenders have a lot more programs than you realize. And if you're just going with the person that you got connected with or whatever that is, I would talk to 2 or 3 people, just like we talk about real estate agents, right? And we interview against people all the time. That's fine. So that's just as important as anything else. Maybe you can negotiate a concession. Maybe you can get like some seller's assist to like buy down the rate. Like PHFA is a great program that has lower rates. So there are some upsides here, and that may be a 15-year loan, right? I mean, It all depends on your situation. So what's happened since then? So we got these CME Group results. There's a 97.3% chance we don't see a rate cut at the January meeting. That's pretty. That's kind of. That I think it made Jerome Powell's job a lot easier after this jobs report came out, because this was a really hot report. And, inflation hasn't been moving anywhere, so there's really no incentive to cut rates. And, so you don't need to cut rates to stimulate the economy. So, for the agents out there, I mean, I'm just very clear Jerome Powell's not going to save you. And this is what you're dealing with right now. What are you looking at now as you look at your business, right? Because I think a lot of people are like, they kind of cross their fingers and like, oh, the market's going to get better, rates are going to, but that's not happening. That's very clear.
Right. I mean, the market is the market. And if it gets better in one aspect, it tends to get harder in another, right? Like
yes.
If rates do go down, competition tends to go up. The overall price of the home tends to go up. There's always going to be some type of thing that makes, buying or selling or like whatever the piece is there, not just be all rainbows and perfect, right? Like there's always something. So I think being aware of and like informed, obviously, as to what is going on, but then being able to kind of bring things back to motivation and to, can this payment work for you given where we are right now with where everything is?
Yeah, I mean, you said bringing it back to motivation. That if you're a real estate agent watching this, just you do that your entire career, you're going to be fine. Like, are they motivated to sell? Is there a reason behind this? It's not just, hey, the market's great, or this is a good time to buy or a good time to sell. And I wouldn't use that language at all because it makes you sound like you're selling something rather than trying to help somebody. I mean, looking back on your career, and as long as you've been in business, you've been through a global pandemic, you've been through this rising rate environment. The people that transact, is it because the market's in their favor, or is it because they're motivated?
It's 99% of the time because they're motivated. And I mean, back when rates were, down in the 2s and super low, I was still fairly new to the business. So I don't know that I was quite able to capture some of the people that maybe would have been really rate focused or like highlight that as much as, it was, even then for me, it was motivation of buyers. And, at that point in time, it was like, yes, these rates are incredibly low, but people weren't used to having to pay going up and over to such lengths, I guess, in order to secure the home. So there, it's like you had low rates, but you had incredibly high competition and strategies that people were not used to, like waiving inspections, like giving up some of these different opportunities to do due diligence. And so there was always a trade-off.
It was unheard of to waive a home inspection. Like, that was a very rare thing. And if that would happen, and it was like, wow, like this deal is really worth it, because you're not opening yourself up to that. Now we've seen like inspections that they're much more common, and a lot of agents don't know how to deal with them. So that
Right.
it's very interesting. Like that's a skill you got to work on. Like, talk to a home inspector, understand how to negotiate, know what the agreement of sale says, because that's always been the norm, except for that moment in time, and it just happened to be when you started in real estate. And I think a lot of people feel that way, knowing what the turnover rate is. So, looking at this jobs report, I think this is really indicative of where the market's going to be this year. It's a lot like 2019, not so much like, or the beginning of 2020, before like March, right? Where there's going to be homes that sell right away that are really hot. There's others that are going to take some time. Some deals are going to be a little easier to negotiate. Some are going to be really tough.
Yep.
Like that's what real estate is like, and you don't know until you get into it. And putting sales together is like, it's challenging.
Right.
Doing deals is hard. I don't think people realize the degree of difficulty putting these transactions together, what it really takes.
Right. Putting them together, keeping them together.
Yeah. Well, emotions run high.
Yes.
People are stressed. They're
Yes.
spending a lot of money. They're trying to move. So, that's where just staying calm and letting things play out can go a long way for you as well.
Right. Because if there's ever a situation in which you're going to lose your cool, I think it's probably during this, like as an individual, because it's a lot of money. It's a huge investment. It's a lot of stress. And tensions are running high. So, as agents, we have to be able to keep our cool and, maybe go like screaming a pillow off to the side for like a minute when nobody else is around, and then come back to it calm.
Yeah. Well, and this is what the market's going to be like, because there's mixed signals right now. You got like a jobs report that comes in hot, but inflation's okay. Rates are moving, but they're below the average. It's all perspective. And the more you can just, be empathetic with that, because it's not easy buying it. There's a reason people don't do this that often.
Right.
Like it's not fun. Moving sucks, right? So the more you can help people navigate it, give them information, be empathetic, have some emotional intelligence. That's going to go a long way here. Because you're right. I mean, think about some of like the folks, maybe if it's like a friend of yours or someone and they're usually pretty normal, and they lose their like it's happened to me before. Like people just they lose it or they get upset, and has nothing to do with you. It's just the
Right.
situation that they're in.
Right. Right.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and the NAR appeal to the Supreme Court regarding the DOJ investigation got denied. We're going to break that down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are going to be talking about the NAR appeal getting denied and the Philadelphia 76ers pulling like the rug was pulled out of Center City here. I want to talk about this because there's been all kinds of reaction. We'll do that at the end. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how to navigate the Sixers not moving to Center City, or you got questions about what's going on in the market, you can talk to Sarah specifically. You can do that with the link in the comments. So we're going to start with this NAR appeal. So to give everyone some perspective, the saga here, right? I'm just going to break down the time frame. This is a very large time frame. And the picture on this article is fantastic because it's of Bart Simpson and says, "At least you tried," right? I mean, that's kind of, I think, how everyone feels right now.
Yep.
So 2018, the DOJ opens an investigation into NAR on the participation rule and the clear cooperation rule, which means you participate in the MLS, it's compensation's basically guaranteed. Clear cooperation means that it's it needs to be out on the market and you need to share listings with everybody on the MLS. So there's a settlement agreed to in 2020, and then all of a sudden in July 2021, the DOJ withdraws the settlement, claiming it prevents future investigation into anti-competitive practices. This goes on and on and on. October, NAR petitioned the Supreme Court to review the case, arguing the DOJ must honor contractual promises, which I tend to agree with. I mean, our whole business is contracts, right? And then this got announced just a day or two ago. It was on the 13th, so just yesterday. So basically with what it means is the DOJ investigation is going to proceed. The future of commission rules and antitrust concerns in real estate remains uncertain, even after this multiple $100 billion settlement with the Sitzer-Burnett case. An NAR spokesperson said that the organization remains committed to taking every single step to fight for their interests of the members and the consumers they serve. This decision could have lasting effects on industry practices and the relationship between private entities and government contracts. And this is just going to go on here. And there's probably significant implications for real estate professionals. What do you think about all this, Sarah? We've been talking about this pretty much on a weekly basis on the show here. I know we train on it constantly. What's your initial reaction that the Supreme Court declined this appeal?
I think that this is something where we just expect it to be kind of going on for the foreseeable future. I'm not completely surprised. And I think that there will, this is going to continue to be in the news. There will be, some like bullet points here and there, but I think we just have to be kind of prepared to stay compliant and to know what is going on like currently on whatever day it is.
Well, I think that's smart, right? Because there's a lot of agents. Like, how many agents have you run into since August that have no idea what any of this stuff means?
Yeah, I think it's less now than it was right after,
sure.
But it was kind of, especially because we had been preparing for it for so long, it was kind of surprising at the beginning, the kind of level of like unawareness that some people had.
Well, and that's also part of being in the right organization that's going to prepare you for protecting your income and your well-being and your livelihood.
But what I am still noticing, and this is like on most transactions, still for like the paperwork for like where do you put the commission? Do you put it in the some brokerages want it right there in the contract, so it's all listed right there in the agreement of sale. Others want it to be that cooperating broker form. If you put it on the cooperating broker form and then you also put it on the agreement of sale, it can be read as you're like trying to like double do it. So I've had to, I feel like in most places, like when I'm on the buy side, if I'm writing an offer, I call the listing agent and I say like, how do you want this?
Yeah,
because otherwise you're going to get the likelihood that you pick the right way is minimal.
Well, what's funny about that too is they have that cooperating broker form and it says not to be used as an addendum. And then some agents are like, just attach it as an addendum. And I'm like, did you not read the top line underneath the title of this form? And that's where it gets frustrating. I like your strategy because it's about doing deals, right? Like that. That's always the. You can argue which way's right, which way's wrong. Everyone's got their attorneys. Attorneys have a ton of opinions, and if you focus on what actually matters, usually good things happen. So congratulations on having the right mindset, Sarah. No surprise there. When I look at this, the DOJ has been very adamant that they want to almost eliminate cooperating compensation. Like they don't want brokerages saying, hey, well, we're listing it at X bananas and we're going to pay you Y bananas from this. They want that to come directly from the seller, which...
Like, why do they care?
It's a great question. They obviously didn't care in 2020 when they agreed to the settlement. This wasn't even part of it. And, it's what happens with the DOJ. And I'd be interested to see what happens after Monday. Because, who knows what's going to happen with the DOJ. I'm clear they play politics no matter what they say that doesn't happen. That's fine. What I'm more worried about here, if you're going to, having to sign the buyer agency agreement, that really doesn't mean anything. There's non-exclusive agreements. You can walk away from stuff. That's almost meaningless. And also the offer of compensation to me is meaningless because now you can negotiate it. And it's like, hey, my buyers wants to pay me more. Can we put that in? My buyer's going to pay me less or whatever that is. It's almost meaningless here. You're negotiating your own fee. The bigger concern I have here is that I don't know how a government organization agrees to a contract that's signed and then can just back out of it because they don't want to. They're worried about future negotiations.
Right.
That's a dangerous precedent. Yeah. Good. Took the words right out of my mouth, Sarah. Good job. Been doing this show long enough to get there. So I'm a little concerned about that. Now, I think it was clear it was going to be a long shot for the Supreme Court to hear this. The court typically accepts like 100 to 150 cases out of the 7,000 petitions it receives each year. I'm more nervous about like contract law and what it means there because we already have people that just don't want to agree to their contracts. How many times are you in a real estate sale and people just ignore the agreement like completely?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like silly stuff. Like it says one thing and like, we don't want to agree with this. And it's, well, you signed it. Now that's also probably lack of communication. So I'm a little concerned here. I mean, I do think cooperating compensation may go away if the DOJ really forces the issue. I don't think it's going to change much. I mean, have you sold any homes where they're not offering cooperating compensation?
No.
So our team has, and we've seen a couple.
I've done where they're not offering like a high enough one, and then you have to.
Yeah, you're looking to get more because you're worth more. Yeah.
Yeah, but I have not yet run across one where it was like 0.
Sure, and what I've seen happen is this: 1, the buyer pays it if they really want the house. 2 is the seller's willing to pay it if they like the deal.
Yep.
Which is no different than declining an offer when they were already offering the compensation. It's kind of the same thing. It's just not a set amount up front. It's no different than if you don't like the settlement date or you don't like the buyer's financing. Like we see offers get declined all the time. Mm-hmm. So the option to negotiate with the seller is a viable one. And then the third is the seller's, hey, I want to incentivize people. Like the problem I have is who's the DOJ to tell the sellers what they can and can't do to sell their property? Right.
And I still don't know why they care. And who within the DOJ is the one making is it somebody that I'm assuming they're picking a qualified person. That's I don't know how many people weigh in on this out of the DOJ and what exactly that process looks like. But, hopefully they're qualified people. I'm sure they are, but.
Yeah. And I think that, there's the antitrust concern, right?
Sure.
Now that, just if you look at, kind of the basis behind this, they want to, the DOJ cares about real estate because it's got a vested interest in ensuring fair competition and consumer protection within the market, which I'm all for. I think that that's very clear. But you're also, there's a question here of you and your husband own your home, right? Mm-hmm. Who's to say how you sell that property? I mean, right. that you bought it, you paid for it, you worked off the mortgage, all those things. And when you start to tell people here's exactly what you have to do, I think that's where it actually becomes more of a price fixing issue or restrictions on seller choice that could harm consumers, but you don't have to sell it. That's the option.
Right.
So, and with, antitrust concerns, I mean, they're worried about, this idea that commissions aren't negotiable is just ridiculous. I mean,
right.
They get negotiated all the time. We've sat at the table and people have negotiated these things with you and I together. The sellers are right over there.
Yep.
Hey, okay, how about this? And then we work it out and it's fine. So I don't think they have a real clear idea what happens. I do get the forced participation.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the being able to negotiate on that has always been the case. And if you look back from when in the MLS they were posting what the buyer agent commission was, no, it never lists what the listing agent or what the listing side is. But on the buyer side, if you go back to before this change went through, you're going to see a wide range of what the compensation to the buyer agent is, and that was prior to the rules changing.
Yeah, and I think that's the reality. And we even haven't seen commissions drop that much but it's hard to chart the data now too. So
right,
yeah, this whole thing, I look at this here, and obviously the DOJ's got a problem with real estate and they're in the crosshairs, and I think we got to kind of wait a little bit and see what's going to happen because we've seen the DOJ go back before when administrations change. We have an administrative change coming up on Monday. I don't know that this means now the Supreme Court's a separate entity for sure. I think it's going to be a question if the DOJ backs off or not.
Right.
So more real estate fun here to talk about. So why don't we take a quick break? We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. They had this plan for 76th place. We haven't really talked about this on the show here either. So I'm curious to get your observations, opinions on this. And over the weekend, it was kind of I want to say, was it Saturday morning or Sunday morning? And they're like, hey, we're not building it anymore. And it was pretty shocking news. It came out of nowhere here. There's a lot to unpack there, and we'll talk about what it means for Philadelphia, for the sports complexes, all that stuff next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Tymon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, and we are talking about this, I would say, like surprising. I don't know, shocking, but surprising news that the Philadelphia 76ers abandoned their plan over the weekend to open 76th Place down in the Market East corridor and are going to be building a shared building with the Philadelphia Flyers and Comcast, who they've been feuding with. And the new arena is going to open in 2031. I mean, that's 6 years from now. And Comcast is going to have the naming rights to this. This kind of like dropped over the weekend. It was like it was just kind of out of nowhere. I think I heard it. I think it was Sundays when the news came out. I want to say it was Sunday because I was driving to the grocery store and I heard something on the news. It was like, wow, that's really happening. So, what do you think about this before we break all this down? Because there's a lot to unpack here. There was a lot of news that came out of this.
Yeah. So I mean, I was just watching TV and it like popped up and I was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't realize that it was, I guess, falling apart as much as it maybe was for, the Market Street location.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it is kind of neat that all the stadiums are in the same spot. So it kind of like,
mm-hmm.
keeps everything there. But, I know transportation is an issue. So yeah, I mean, it did kind of surprise me, but what did you think?
Well, I mean, what I know is that the Sixers are the third tenant in the building right now. So they get like the least preferential scheduling, which I think hurts the product on like they have a lot of back-to-back games and that sort of stuff. And these guys never play back-to-back games on the Sixers anyway. I know you're not, Sarah's not like down at every game. She doesn't have season tickets, but that I think that's an issue number one. They don't have control over the building.
Right.
And I don't know if this was like a, hey, we're going to do this so we get what we want down there sort of thing, which people do all the time. It's like a threat to get what they want. On the news, it said Roger Goodell got involved, the NFL commissioner. Well, the Sixers owner, Josh Harris, also owns the Washington Commanders. So maybe he said, hey, like, go down there or we're not going to build your new stadium in D.C. because they're trying to get that's rated like the worst stadium in the country for the Washington Commanders. I mean, the whole thing is kind of wild to me because the city approved all this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, we changed our mind, guys. And I think it makes the city look like, I mean, the mayor, if I was the mayor, I'd feel like an idiot right now.
Right. Well, so what ranking spot do they have now if they were third before?
Well, see, so that's part of this. So I think they're going to be partners in the building. And they're going to build this it's a world-class state-of-the-art arena, whatever. They're all world-class state-of-the-art when they get built.
Yep.
And Comcast is going to have the naming rights, and they're going to take a minority ownership stake in the Sixers as part of the agreement. And Comcast used to own the Sixers from 96 till 2011 until the current ownership group purchased them. It sounds like they're also going to bid for a WNBA team, and it's going to be a joint investment or a joint building. So I think they're going to have a little more flexibility because like what will happen is like the Flyers schedule's number one, then like concerts are number two.
Okay, yeah,
and then the Sixers are number three.
Yeah.
So I think it's even just, getting to number two ahead of like
concerts. Yeah.
Pink and Bruce Springsteen, whoever's going to play there. Right. So I think that's going to be part of this here. It's just very shocking to me. And the Sixers still like own the land up by Market East. So I wonder what's going to happen with that because that part of the city could use a shot in the arm. I mean, it's like cool because you're by like City Hall and all that other stuff, but Macy's just closed. There's not like a lot to like do there. Like you don't go out and like hang out in that part of the city.
Right.
And then
so I guess I wonder who they'll sell it to or what they'll do with it.
I would imagine they'll develop that. I mean, so the other thing to think about here too is the Phillies are partnering with Comcast Spectacor to develop the sports complex. And they're talking about like having like mixed use retail and all these restaurants. And in theory, that sounds good. I mean, let's say you and your husband are like, hey, let's go out in the city tonight. Mm-hmm. Are you going to go to the Stadium District or are you just going to go to Center City?
Yeah, we're not going to, unless if we're going there for a game. Like, I don't think we're going there.
Well, I think that's kind of the whole point is that, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to drive down there. Now, maybe people in South Philly and that sort of stuff, they'll go that way. But I don't know that it's gonna like. There's supposed to be like a mid-sized concert venue, a hotel, an outdoor plaza, upgrading Xfinity Live. And if you remember, Xfinity Live was supposed to be a lot bigger when it got built, and then it like was smaller. So, I think it's a good idea, but the traffic getting in and out of there is horrible.
Right. But I mean, so are you talking about like you don't know that the places that would be being built there would get enough daily use.
I
But
mean,
I
who's
think
going
they would,
down there? Like, I
right.
mean, that's just my question. I mean, unless
But
there's a
then
game.
whenever there is like a game or a concert ever, they're probably just like blowing it out of the water with.
You're right about
so
that.
like they're like the trade off is probably worth it. Like hopefully they would get enough business during any of the events, which like given that all of the stadiums down there are in that same location and it hits all throughout the year because of like, the different sports. Like I think they would be able to make do. I'd hope.
I mean, you would
I'm
think
sure they ran the
so.
numbers.
I mean, I would hope so. I mean, it's how many people are really going to come down there. And the thing about NBA arenas, which is interesting, is besides Chicago, Philadelphia is the only city in the NBA that doesn't have a downtown arena. That's the only one.
Okay.
So, I think, NBA games are a little different. I mean, they're timed. It's like you're out of there like 2.5 hours.
Right.
Which is awesome. But there was a lot of opposition. Chinatown and Washington Square West did not want that arena there for sure.
Was that because it kind of like segregated them from the rest of?
Well, they just thought it was going to. Yeah, I mean, it would bring a lot more traffic to the area, and there was all these community benefits coming. I mean, I don't know. The timing on this is just odd. Like, I mean, they approve it, and then it's like, oh, we changed our. I feel like there's more to this that we're not going to know about. It's probably some like backroom deal or something.
Because I mean, this has been in the works for years.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it personally, but I think a lot of like Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, thought this was a great idea. Roger Goodell was involved, right? So I mean, obviously, I think there's other people that are influencing this and bringing a WNBA team, I think that would. So you talk about people coming in there, like those games are different times of the year. So Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, he said that was great news as well. I think they did want to. There was this sentiment to keep everything together down there. I just driving down there stinks. I mean, it's getting out's worse. Like that's horrible.
Yeah.
Especially if you got to drive. I mean, I took my daughter to the Steelers game a couple weeks ago, and she didn't want to take. She's 10, right? So she didn't want to take like the subway and all that stuff. We were in the parking lot for an hour, and we left a little early, just like sitting there. And so I mean,
get gridlock.
That's part of the problem, and I think that makes it less enjoyable. Like it's fun going to the games, but it's a lot less enjoyable leaving. So I don't know. I wonder what's going to happen to Market East. I mean, they just lost Macy's, right? So, that's a little bit of a challenge as well. I mean, I was a big fan of 76th Place, but what do I know?
Yeah. And then all these other, like for most of the other major cities that have downtown arenas for the NBA, are the rest of their stadiums like spread out, or are the rest of their stadiums like is that like unique of Philly that we have all of ours in one spot?
Yeah, I mean the cities I've been to where I've like obviously Madison Square Garden's right downtown, but like the Mets and the Yankees don't play there. I mean their football teams play in Jersey, so that's New York. That's maybe an extreme example. You look at Miami, right? So wherever the Heat play, like that's right down, it's right on the water, like it's right in the middle of town. Hard Rock's outside the city. I've been to like a real estate event there. So it's maybe about like 15, 20 minutes away. New England, same thing. I mean, you got Boston Garden downtown, and then the Patriots playing Foxborough. They're not even, so and obviously like an NFL stadium's different because they only have X amount of games there a year. Like, I mean, 8, maybe 10 games if you're in the playoffs. So that's, and there's a lot more people that go to that. So, you do tend to see more downtown stadiums and arenas when it comes to NBA or even like MLB. I mean, you see that sort of stuff too. So, but NBA is just it's so in and out, and it's also a lot less people. It's like 18, 20, 22,000 people, not 40, 70,000 people.
Right.
What did you think? Well, I mean, you may not be a big sports fan, but you go to the games. Like I've seen you there.
Yeah.
What did you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing something back end, something must have happened, either that this all along was some type of like negotiation tactic. I think it makes sense for the 76ers to have to be number 2 in line for like how things get scheduled versus like concerts. Cause if you are, people go to concerts like all different nights. But for the players, if you have to play back to back all the time just because of that's when they could get things scheduled, that might, I'm sure that like affects their performance. So yeah, being able to bump up there in order would be good. But I wonder, right, was it a negotiation thing? Did something fall through, or what kind of pulled them back to to keeping everything together if the city was on board for them to be at the new location.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of opposition. I think, people in Chinatown were not happy about it, obviously. I mean, they had, like, all sorts of demonstrations that were there. The Sixers coach, Nick Nurse, he had an interesting reaction where he said, I'm excited by the proposal for a new arena. It's exciting. Any team will be excited about that. But he didn't get why all the stadiums were where they were altogether. But now that he's here coaching regularly, because he was a coach for Toronto before, and he kind of sees the value in it because for whatever reason the people here like it that way. So, I mean, it's a good move for Comcast. I think it's a good move for the district. Like, you don't want one team rogue when you have everyone else there. If you're trying to make this a destination, I just think that whole area, like, imagine if you did something with FDR Park and you had
Right.
it has to be more than just the stadiums being down there, because there's a lot of neighborhoods that are pretty close, like in South Philly or Josh Grabensky, he lives not too far from there.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think there is some value to that. The South Philly residents reacted.
Oh yeah,
Because no one's talking about them, right? Like, everyone's talking about Chinatown and Washington Square West. So the reaction from a lot of people in South Philly was pretty exciting. They were happy about it, that they're staying there. So I think that's a positive. This is just going to be one of those things where it there was a chance to do something different. The city didn't, and now here's where we are. I mean, the whole thing just seems odd to me. I think it maybe I really do think it was a flex to get what they wanted from the existing arrangement, because, I mean, how many concerts really come to Philadelphia? They need two, like an NBA arena and an NHL arena.
Right. Well, and what the plan for when it would be completed is 2031. Is that what you said?
At the latest, it might even be sooner. And
so when will they start?
I don't know. I'm wondering how this construction is going to go too.
Right.
Like, what comes first? Are they going to build the stadium first? They're going to build the retail. Like, this could be going on a long time.
Right.
You look on the Phillies website. Let me find this here. So, they had a press release back in March, and they talked about Phase 1 and Phase 2. So Phase 1 involved the lots between Pattison and Wells Fargo, and that is going to include the concert venue, the hotel, the retail shops, and outdoor plaza, Xfinity Live. That's supposed to be completed by 2028. I don't know if these plans change now. This was the original announcement in March, and then Phase 2 was going to be more development around the Wells Fargo Center, but see, they're getting a new arena now, so I'm not really sure. And they were going to expand north of Pattison Avenue to the lots that the Phillies own, and that's another hotel, residential units, more retail, restaurants, office space.
So then will they tear down the other stadium and then that will be parking? Because where are all the tailgaters going to go?
You ever been to a tailgate at an Eagles game? It is insane. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
we need that space.
it'll be in the Jetro lot. That's where the bad things happen, in the Jetro lot. You know where I'm talking about. It's like the far lot that no one goes to. So, interesting news for Philadelphia. We'll see what happens. I don't think the plan's fully baked yet here. So we'll keep following this because there's major implications. Hopefully you got some value out of this episode. You want to follow Sarah? She's at Ty_TyTime on Instagram. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD. And we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.